Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. This show is sponsored by Primer & Co. Tonight I have with me Nick and our lovely Mike Ford. So tonight we're doing another after action report on a match, and this is one that I'm probably going to be kind of interviewing them in because I did not shoot it, and that is the Cola Warrior. And this was in Pennsylvania, right? Was there a different match name for it for the range or something?
Mike, you want to go ahead? I think you got it.
Yes, so this was the Keystone Cola Warrior event. It was hosted at the Geisley Range facility. And this was my first Cola Warrior. Nick, I believe it was yours as well.
That's right.
So it was a trial by fire experience for us.
Yep, and this was the inaugural event for Cola Warrior at this location. They have multiple Cola Warriors across the country, from Nevada to east down in Virginia, Flyover, which is in Missouri, I believe, and a couple other different venues. But this was the inaugural event hosted up in the Geisley Range up in Pennsylvania. So it is rightfully named the Keystone Cola Warrior.
Yeah, because from what I've seen, Geisley is like a huge sponsor for the Cola Warrior, correct?
Absolutely. They've been a long-time sponsor for it. I don't quite know the history of Geisley's support for the event, whether if it's relatively recently or if it's something that's, like, say, among the OGs for this. And to my understanding, this Cola Warrior has been a thing for more than a decade. So it's got the longevity for a lot of events that simply we don't see in a lot of different places.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get right into match flavor. I think this match this after action. People are very divided on Cola Warrior. This is not a match or an event that it sounds like you either love it or you hate it. So I don't know, you guys want to kind of talk about what the event is like, because there's kind of a main theme to all the Cola Warriors.
Like,
yeah, so Cola Warrior is a long weekend from what I've seen and what I understand about the other events, where you come together and you do an obstacle course, you do an eating challenge, and then you do a run, and then a shooting challenge, and that all culminates with a climax of drinking 72 ounces of a carbonated beverage. And that is a timed event, and penalties apply for failure to do so.
Yeah, so hence the cola name in that. So, and it's not just cola, correct? There are peeps involved in this.
right.
Mm-hmm.
The quintessential logo for folks running cola is some peep in wearing some form of night vision or something silly like that. But Cola Warrior in itself has some maybe not the right term, but goofiness to it. But it's all in good flavor. I think Mike and I are definitely in the love it camp, where it was just a really fun challenge. And with Cola Warrior being the way it is, there 5 different obstacles, and similar to Run and Gun, where it's not like a prescribed organization such as like USPSA, NFL, NHL, whatever. Every different venue has its own flavor, and this one, from what I understand, had its own very unique flavor to it, given the facility we were at. So in regards to the obstacles, just like any other, you have 5 different ones you do. Like Mike mentioned, you have your peep consumption, which is just a sleeve of peeps. I think it's like 5 or 6, while simultaneously you are assembling and disassembling and reassembling an AK, just field stripping it, and then you're going out for that run, followed by your shoot, followed by the chug of 72 ounces of your carbonated beverage of your choice, or in the least common route, from what I understand, is the 128 ounces of milk. So you can't do carbonated beverages, you got that. But yeah, so the expectation with it is to have fun, is to, I think, have that adversity everyone shares and people really bond over that. And yeah, so that's kind of the flavor of the match, where like run and gun, there's chill time, but I think the run and gun balance is like, say, from like maybe a staff perspective of like 80% working and doing some stuff, 20% dedicated chilling out. I think this was the opposite, where you had 80% chilling out, 20% of performance, at least from just us hanging out for the weekend. Mike, would you agree with that kind of balance of labor for Cola Warrior?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as a different change of pace, because while everyone is wanting to run and shoot and lay down a legitimate performance, if they were into that, it was really about having a good time. And that just showed throughout the nature of the event. It felt like a really big family reunion. That's kind of how I would put it.
Yeah.
And it really just created a fantastic environment to hang out. Something that I've noticed is there was a lot more people that brought their kids to camp for the weekend, and they people stayed up late into the night hanging out around the campfire and doing stuff. So it was just a really cool chance to experience a different atmosphere in the shooting community that we don't normally get at the more serious matches.
Yeah, so I kind of get the feeling that and so I guess, to go back, a lot of the reason I think Cola Warrior gets a bad press, maybe, or from people who don't like it, is that it's a little frat boyish. That the main point is that you're trying to throw up in a lot of ways. Like, you're drinking soda and Peeps, and you know that you're probably going to throw up. So looking at it in that light, it's like, yeah, I guess I see that. But on the flip side, I see it, and I've talked to some other Cola Warrior peoples, is it's like the obstacles and the things, they're trying to make you perform, do things in an uncomfortable situation. You know, you're taking yourself somewhere that you would not normally go. I mean, I don't know about the rest of the people in this, but like, I don't normally drink a soda until I throw up. I have drank milk until I've almost thrown up a handful of times, but I really love milk. but
Okay.
So, like, you know what I mean? But like, it's not something that you're normally like, hey, I'm gonna try to make myself throw up, and then we'll go like shoot, or I'm gonna go run, or I'm gonna do this. So I get that. You know, it's a challenge, and people like to just do different things. I mean, is that kind of a fair assessment of it?
I'd say yes, with the additional caveat that it's like there weren't gamers there. This, not saying like, we'll say relative to, say, run and gun, for example. I'm gonna make this comparison a lot between run and gun and Cola Warrior, because it's the most analogous comparison I have. And like run and gun, you don't see your stereotypical, gamer there, right? Where they'll argue calls, the stereotypical not fun gamer. Run and gun, you don't have that. But even further down that spectrum is Cola Warrior, where the peeps, the lack of a better term, the goofiness of it does push away those stereotypical gamers more so than I would say run and gun does, just by the straight nature of it. And within that, because there's like no gamers in it, the atmosphere is straight up like a family reunion, just like Mike mentioned, where people here, they do good runs. They don't really care. They're here to like, hey, I'm here to get some good brisket. I'm here to hang out with my friends I haven't seen in a while. Stuff that I think that's really things that are really compatible with like a lot of run and gun folks, in terms of, I have an hour of activity, but then the rest of the time I'm hanging out with my friends I haven't seen in a while, or hanging out with my friends I wouldn't see otherwise. So I think Cola Warrior is definitely more so that, rather than the shooting and performance aspect of it.
And I definitely like that. And I guess for anyone who knew me, especially early when I was getting into like 3-gun, I wore some really I've toned it down. I wore some pretty ridiculous looking like shooting jerseys, basically Amazon shirts with like cats with laser beams and rainbow stuff. And a lot of that for me was that I saw a lot of people that had been in the sport a long time that took it way too serious. And that's their thing. Like I'm not gonna, there's a lot of people that are way more serious about it. For me, it was a hobby. I wanted to do well. I'm going to show up and I'm going to game a stage. I'm going to try hard. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to have fun. And I definitely get that vibe with Cola Warrior. And I appreciate that because even running gun, I want to do well. Like I'm out there trying. But if something doesn't go my way, if, RO messes something up or I mess up, like I'm not winning a Cadillac, I want it to be fair. I want to have fun, but who cares, Like I want to enjoy myself. So I'm hoping to get out to a Cola Warrior. I'm bummed I missed this one with just, it was dad weekend and I wanted to do dad stuff with my kids, but I'm hoping to get to one here in the near future.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
the environment, I think one of the fun things, and Nick probably enjoyed this too, was even at running gun, which is a little more of an informal, there's very few matches that encourage like heckling and just having a good time. And I absolutely had a blast at Cola Warrior because of the fact that like heckling is encouraged. If you're not getting heckled, you're not having the peak levels of fun that you should be. And it's they don't give kid gloves people when they start. It is everything that you do, everything about you, everything that you are running gear wise is open and fair game. And I like that just as a change of pace as well. That was really cool and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That it sounds like a great environment. I'm definitely looking forward to it. So I don't know how applicable this is. Distance of the course, divisions, like, is there anything like that? I mean, I know there's still scorekeeping going on, even if it's not the main point of the event.
Yeah, so within the different divisions, I suppose you could say there are four. One just being overall, two being woman overall, and then three being night, and then four being combat. So with night, that's exclusively night vision, night vision and IR. No white light is permitted, at least at this event. Overall male, overall woman. That's self-explanatory for the overall ranking. Then combat is either day or night. Although I don't think anyone ran combat night this run. But with combat, you must wear a plate carrier with rifle rated plates. You must have a liter of water on your person with medical gear. And then in the conduct of the obstacles, your ammo must be on you for the obstacles. And yeah, those are broadly speaking the divisions. I think I'm medical gear. Combat does need to carry medical gear, which includes like rudimentary like tourniquet, gauze, and I think they need one more, but I think it's tourniquet and gauze is the check mark for combat.
So basically, your IFAC, like what
exactly.
you probably have somewhere around anyways, because you're on a range with guns.
Right.
All right. So and then I guess then gear is just kind of open. It doesn't use what makes sense.
Yep. Mike, you want to talk about the ammo? The ammo that was required for it a little bit.
So gear, talking about like how we carried ammo was a little different than most matches. This match, and I believe other colas might be like it. You can only carry 2 magazines of pistol and 2 magazines of rifle. So, depending on how you shoot and how much weight you want to carry and what guns you run, you need to be very smart. I wouldn't run a single stack 1911 at this event. This is not the event for you. Running a Glock or an M&P or whatever high cap 9mm or that you enjoy, is probably the way. I ended up running a Glock, so I took a 33 round stick and a 21 round stick, and I believe I finished the course with 15 rounds. And then with rifle, only allowed 2 magazines. I took a D60, so a 60 round magpul drum and a 40 round magpul stick, and I finished the course with, I believe, around 50 rounds. So there was definitely some gambles, because I don't want to go too far ahead from where we had set out, but it was probably the hardest course of fire I have ever shot on the clock anywhere. Accuracy requirements was very high, and penalties were extreme. So there was some things you could do accuracy by volume, but not everything. This was a really good match. If you were running a like a 16-inch Grendel or Arc, would have been right at home. I ran a 223 and pushed 69 grain match rounds at 2,800 feet per second, and I was able to get all my rifle hits. But the course of fire involved pistol shooting out to 70 yards and rifle engagement out to 700 yards. So very unique. I'm not seeing courses like this at any of the other running guns that we're doing in terms of shooting challenges. Very tough. Nick, I believe you ran a Grendel, didn't you? How'd that work for you?
Right. I ran the course 3 times due to me being a slow learner, but also me not wanting to say no, and also me just teetering on I can do a little better. I can do better than this, and didn't happen, but we'll get to that later. For my 3 runs, I did 2-day combat runs, and I did a night run. I ran a 6-5 Grendel. The night run, we'll just exclude that from this right now. But for the day runs, I ran a 6.5 Grendel out of a 13.9 barrel. So I'm pushing. I was using just Wolf and 123 grain ELDMs, pushing at about 2580, and I think, I don't know, 23 and change for muzzle velocity. And the Grendel was frankly right at home for this kind of event. This kind of event where, you know, we had some relatively generous sized targets, at least say from PRS or a gas gun perspective. We had like full size dipsticks for the long range rifle, which began at, I believe, 350 and ended up at 700. So we had really good spotters. We had very lenient in terms of giving you corrections on the clock for your hits. And with that, the Grendel was, I was very pleased with the Grendel. I had some thoughts of switching up to a 5.56 for that. Same deal of running a D60 with a 40 rounder, but I elected to go with a higher BC. Frankly, I'm pretty happy with the results I had with mine.
Yeah, I mean, at 700 yards, it's hard to keep most AR rounds supersonic. You know, I think most of them, even with some longer barrels, it was 69 grain, you're going subsonic at 650. I mean, so a Grendel, that definitely shines. If ammo was the same price as 223, no one would be shooting 223 5.56, I imagine.
Right, and I think everyone, but perhaps maybe a handful of like the 65-ish shooters, shot 5.56, and you know, taking a peek at some of the scores and whatnot going around, I was pretty surprised at the amount of folks that did well on the rifle. So it's you know, good calls on the spotters for helping. I'm presumably assisting these guys, but also good job on the shooters for you know, making those hits at distance in the very frankly difficult environment that we were shooting at.
Yeah, I mean, like, and obviously you can get it done with 5.56. There's Mike did, obviously other people did, but it definitely, that tends to be kind of the edge of what they like to do, and you got to be a pretty good rifleman to get that gun to do it there. So, is there anything more gear wise or stage wise you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm just going to dive back into the rifle thing briefly. There was a lot of offhand shooting with the rifle, and all this was spread across the side of a mountain. So you are shooting after a run and uphill as you go from point to point to point. So, you might think, well, I'm going to run at maybe an AR-10 or something. Well, if you want to stand and do some challenging offhand shooting, then yeah, maybe that's for you. But there was definitely a balance for the shooters. Had to pick a gun that they were very mobile with and could do those challenges and still make downrange hits. One of the interesting things about the range facility was its location on the side of the mountain range, because this is Appalachia, and the wind was like something I never experienced. When I got to the range on Friday night, the weather service for the area was saying gusts up to 35 miles an hour. And due to the shape of the area we're shooting in, it's kind of like a giant bowl. So you get some swirling, and it is probably the best example of the wind that you are feeling is not the wind that's 500 to 700 yards out there. So you had to have enough rounds that you could put some spotter rounds out there so you could get good feedback. And this was an excellent match to have good glass. I could see almost all the splash from my missed rounds and then get a confirmed correction from the spotter with just 223. But yeah, I definitely think Nick running a slightly shorter Grendel with the better BC and the heavier rounds was a fantastic choice. I kind of wish my Grendel was a little bit shorter for an event like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I don't know if we've talked on this show before, but I know we've talked amongst ourselves. The weight of a rifle sometimes is not as big of a deal, but the balance of a rifle is huge. And where that balance is, and if it's like super light out front and a bunch in the back, that offhand shooting is a little bit hard. Big long heavy barrel out front, sometimes that helps you stabilize, but it certainly gets tiring if you got a 20-inch barrel and a can and you're trying to offhand shoot. So that's maybe some good advice for people building out rifles for games like this, practical games, is that besides the fact that you got to carry it around in what you're doing, the difference between shooting offhand and shooting on a barricade, there's a middle ground between that. So I guess anything else you, Mike or Nick, want to add about the gear and the stage before we move on?
Just one quick thing is, this was a good match that if you had a suppressor and a rifle load that worked well, it made a lot of sense, because with the shooting and the sound in the hills, especially if you were shooting quickly, for some of those targets, they weren't able to put like visual flashers and things on them. So the auditory feedback of impact on steel was really important. So this was a match where you could do it without a suppressor. I didn't, just because the rifle load that I had was not playing well with the can. But I think there was definitely an advantage listening to guys with the suppressor shoot. It was easier for the ROs to call good impacts.
Yeah, I noticed that at a 3-gun match I run last weekend. We had some targets at 200 or 100 yards, which is not that far, but one of them was like a 3-inch. And the guys that were shooting with a can, or at least one of them I know, you could hear that hit and call it so much quicker because you just didn't have the loud volume of the gun kind of overpowering it, because it's such a short time between when it leaves the barrel and hits. So that is a good point. On the flip side, depending on what you're doing, if you're using a timer, this guy got 3/4 of the way through the stage, and I looked down at the timer and it said 12 seconds, and I realized it had been a little bit longer than 12 seconds. You kind of have to almost lay on top of him to get a good get it to pick it up if it's quiet enough can. All right, so I guess each of you will go, Nick and then Mike, on this. What did you guys really like about this event? And you've said a lot. Is there something that really stands out overly about this event that you would, the first thing you're going to tell someone about?
First thing, community. The community, very strong. Just by happenstance between the experiences that Mike and I, and of course you've had with going to competitions and things like that, and inevitably running into Cola Warrior folks, Cola Warrior vets as they refer to, I guess, and always had a good impression with the folks up out there, and that impression carried out through the event. So the thing most looked forward to, the thing I'm most happy about is the very strong community that it has, and that's through the very resilient sponsors, through the staff that really dedicate over a week to do this event. It's pretty spectacular, and you don't see that for venues struggle to have a dedicated staff like that, and for an organization like this to have that very passionate support from folks across the country at multiple venues, frankly, I think says a lot about it, and that carries very heavily with me.
And Mike, how about you?
Same. The community there was fantastic. My friend that sponsored me at the event and got me in, John, had me start my run because of wind at 5:40 a.m. and he was blaring music in the parking lot to motivate me before that, and of course he's got me shooting then at like 6 a.m. and everybody was hanging around a campfire. I'm sure there were some people that were probably feeling it and did not want to wake up, but nobody had anything negative to say that wasn't just joshing around, and everyone was excited that someone was crazy enough to get out there and go banging away on steel while they were still in their sleeping bags. It's a really cool atmosphere with a bunch of people that will accept doing crazy things for the sake of eating peeps and chugging soda.
Actually, one more thing to add as well.
Yeah.
I want to add. A big thing here with the folks that ran it, folks like Dale and being the match director for this, another folks like John Stoner, some other guys that were there. I got to run this thing 3 times. And from my understanding, that's in different events, that's a big ask to do, or any event. If it's run and gun, that's almost not heard of, unless you're paying for it. In this case, they didn't say no. I was saying it jokingly, but they're 100% supportive of it and wanting to make it happen. So that meant a lot in terms of satisfying that sadistic, I guess, side of me. They didn't say no, and they were so open to, again, making this happen and having a really good experience. So I value that.
So I forgot to ask. So you used the Grendel. Did you have the M203?
All right. And okay, actually, we'll take a slight segue into gear back into this, because
yes, we should.
Details of the match that came out, it was the range itself is semi-local to me. I've had opportunities to go to matches here in the past, and I from other shooters I know that have gone there, it's developed the reputation of being very difficult, and or rather very technical. Like Mike mentioned earlier, the wind you were feeling was not the wind that your target, or between you and the target, was experiencing. So you got to take environmentals into factor very heavily for the wind that was going on, because geographically you're in a valley that has conjoining winds and other things. So you have some good wind calls, some challenging wind calls to make. Within this, I was going back and forth, or I'm like, all right, I signed up initially for a night run. I was looking at the forecast between cloud cover, illumination rate, the moonrise time, and kind of like, hey, I don't know what it's going to look like, so let me go ahead and modify my gear to make this happen. So I was at first looking at running, my short 308, which is, with 175 grain pills on a suppressor on a 14-inch barrel. But then after, like we mentioned, we're shooting offhand, not just offhand being weak side shoulder, you're one hand on the gun, your other hand holding something. So seeing that, I'm like, nah, a 308's not going to cut it for that kind of shooting. So then after seeing night, I'm like, all right, well, I know the cloud cover is going to be pretty heavy. I don't know what the level of illumination is going to look like. What are options available to me? And right now I have a capability gap where I don't have a. I'm waiting on a different a device to come in. So I sold a mall to fund it. And with me selling the mall, I've been without that capability for like 6 months, waiting for this item to come in. So I had to kind of cannibalize some stuff, put in my 308, figure out like, okay, I don't like this. This isn't going to work out. It's way too heavy. Putting it onto like a 6.5 Brendel or 5.56 upper, trying that out. Okay, cool. It kind of works. And then thinking, I'm running this for the meme. Why not make an insanely heavy gun, something that weighs 25 pounds unloaded? Again, after seeing the offhanded stuff happen, no. Friends were telling me that people would run a meme gun for fun, but then subsequently never run it again. So I'd figure I'd skip that, save myself the pain, and do something that I was going to have fun with regardless. So that's kind of where I kind of went on with the Grendel. The 203, there was some thought into using it at night, given that the forecast initially looked like it wouldn't be very good. Like it would be very cloudy, and the moonrise would be something closer to midnight. So with the small amount of night runners we had, there wouldn't be a whole line of night runners running into the night until midnight. So I have IR flares that I was thinking about using. So the idea,
who doesn't, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so the idea
everyone's
was,
got
hey,
those.
let me try to get some use out of this, and I get no illumination. So with the 203, pop it into the air, have about 60 plus seconds of IR flare coming down on a parachute to illuminate my targets, because like I mentioned before, I sold something. I'm without a capability, so I didn't have a very good high strength illuminator or laser. So I was trying to maximize my illumination given the resources I had. But I changed up so many things for this match, but ultimately went with probably among the more vanilla choices available to me. And I'm glad that I did, because it was a lot of fun.
That is very unmarine like of you though. Like normally you guys like the heaviest, weird, hardest thing to do. So we'll forgive you this time. All right. So I guess, and is there anything that you didn't like about the match, that you didn't like about what you ran, decisions you made, anything like that? Mike, you want to go first on that?
Honestly, not really. I managed to pull off a 7th place finish at my very first Cola Warrior with a lot of highly experienced people. Granted, maybe some of them weren't into trying to score as high as or whatever, but I feel like your very first match someplace way out of your normal comfort zone, being able to go through and place that well, there's nothing I can really complain about. The shooting was very difficult. Working the wind and then working some of the long range pistol. They had so for every target that was engaged but not neutralized was a 5-minute penalty. And
Mike,
they also
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to contextualize the shooting here, do you want to go over what the shooting portion was in detail?
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing it.
Yeah, I can do that. I can pull up either an Excel spreadsheet, or unless you have something already up, Nick.
I have some notes. I can go over it in that case.
Okay.
All right, in the scope of the event, you have your 5 obstacles. You have your consumption of peeps with the simultaneous field stripping and reassembly of an AK. After
and I'd like to hear about the obstacles too at some point.
Yeah.
So because we really haven't mentioned those, and they looked really fun.
Oh yeah, actually we can just do it right now.
Yeah, let's do it in kind of order. Just give us the order of like the whole thing, start to finish.
Okay, cool. So first, the obstacles among all divisions were the same. No changes among them for man, woman, night, combat, whatever. Everything was the same. and penalties were the same for them. So with obstacles, you have two forms of penalties. You have I believe, a 10-minute penalty for just outright skipping an obstacle, and you earn a 5-minute penalty for skipping an obstacle after giving it like an honest attempt for it. And I believe, I don't know, I think they contextualize it as, you need to give 10 seconds of a honest effort to, not earn that additional 5-minute penalty. So your first obstacle was bringing a 20-pound medicine ball in your gear minus your rifle and pistol through a drain pipe. I don't know, about 3 foot in diameter, and you have to reset all the obstacles. So push the medicine ball through, stage back at the start, and immediately roll into a handstand walk. The handstand walk is modeled after I guess one of the classic events where you have to handstand walk, basically put your feet on the wall and your hands down and shimmy across like a Connex. So this was the approximate length of like a shipping container. After that, you roll into a drag. I think you drag a chain. I think it may have been, what, 250? Something like that, Mike? Do you think like 250, 275 is about right? Okay. So you drag this chain.
It looked like a ship anchor chain. I mean, like for people who don't, I mean, it was big lengths from what I saw.
It was a challenge, and a good one. The obstacles were made to be, pretty difficult, and for folks that are fit, I think certainly achievable. This one is probably, I think, the more difficult of the 5. You just drag this chain around a carport. It's maybe 20, 25-ish yards total. After that, you drop the chain, get it back, reset it for the next runner, and then you roll into a medicine ball throw. And basically, you Kobe it through like a peep-shaped hole in wood, and you had the choice of either throwing a 25-pound medicine ball through the hole 6 times or a 40-pound medicine ball through the hole 3 times. If you switch throughout, you just have to select, you would just have to, say if you were throwing a 40-pounder and you got to 1 and you're like, shoot, I can't do this, and you go to the 20-pounder, you got to throw that 20-pounder through 6 times. So it didn't benefit you to change at all. The next obstacle, the final obstacle, was the one that gave me challenge out of all things, right? Was a series of balance beams where you had 2 by 4 by 8, I think, and you had to basically lay them out onto these cinder blocks on the ground, and you had to just get from point A to point B using the planks on these cinder blocks. So the ground was lava. If you manage to fall or have anything other than, say, incidental contact with the ground, then you would have to reset and start the obstacle all over. Mike, do you have anything else, any other details to add to the obstacles, or anything you want to clarify? Because I did just kind of shotgun through all of them.
So the board that you were throwing through medicine balls was probably 10 feet in the air, and you could only throw it one direction. So you couldn't just run the other side, pick it up, and throw. You had to reset to your original side every single time. So you had to decide, hey, can I throw this 40-pound one, 3 times and save some of the reset, or just, I know I can do the 25. The fun thing with the whole ground is lava is they were pieces of cinder blocks. They were not full-size cinder blocks. And these days, I don't really practice balance beam things and run around and, walk on things like curbs and stuff like I did as a kid. So there was definitely some challenge, and you had to be methodical in what you did, and kind of pre-plan your moves as you were moving across. In terms of skill difficulty, that one was the hardest one on the obstacle course.
Yeah, I could see that. People, I don't see people work on balance in the gym often. Everyone wants to lift heavy weights or run 100 miles, and very few people do a whole lot with like stabilizing muscles, which is, you know, what you need, especially one-legged and stuff like that. I mean, that's a good good takeaway there. So yeah, you can continue on.
Okay. After you completed those 5 obstacles, you would walk 15, 20 yards to a strategically placed, camping chair. Inside a camping chair was a sleeve of peeps, and next to it was a 55, gallon barrel with an AK in it. Your job is to consume those peeps and field strip the AK and reassemble it. So kind of got to do it simultaneously. After that, you would go ahead. After you complete that, you would need to reset the peep station for the next runner. So they had the peeps stationed, I don't know, maybe 200 yards away, something like that, from the stand, and you have to sprint down there, pick up a sleeve of peeps from the giant industrial pallet of peeps that they have for the event, run back, throw it in the the cup holder of this lawn chair, and then after that you gather your gear, which included your rifle, your pistol, and your drink. You had to carry your drink on a run as well. You gather all your gear, and then you run that half mile, and that half mile basically began at the foot of a hill. You'd run up to the top of the hill, run across the ridge, and then return back to about maybe the midpoint of the hill to begin your shoot right after. Mike, do you want to continue on from there?
So once you rolled up to the shooting section, you were going to engage pistol first. So they had like a Ford Explorer or similar sized SUV that you open the back door and set your rifle and chug in, and then you slid into the front seat. At this point, you could make your pistol hot, and if you looked through the passenger rear door, you would see a plate rack with diamond, or no, that was actually round plates. And let me pull up an Excel spreadsheet real quick. I can come up with approximate distance. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I'll say I've shot in some hills and valleys, and you guys probably are. You guys are right on. And when you get in those valleys, if you've never shot them, wind, besides speeding up, it can be really switchy from one direction to the next. I mean, a 300-yard target could be a left to right wind, and you get out to 500, and you kind of get on the other side of this, maybe low spot. Now the wind's going the complete opposite direction, or it's coming at you. So if you've never shot in that, it's worth trying to find a place you can do that in, because you'll learn a lot, especially with something like a 69 grain 223. I mean, the wind can really just, I mean, you're not accuracy by volume with that, but you really do need to like get some visual feedback on what that bullet's doing, more so than, if you had a 6.5 Creedmoor, you got a little more leeway with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And with even at that too, with the whole deal of making a good shot call, having good glasses, see those impacts, and then having the additional factors of having those good spotters work you in as well. Those are really crucial to making it out there, and of course having familiarity with the environment too. So if you've shot matches there, or if you happen to know that venue, then that's of course a big thing. There was a guy that was there at the event as well. He shot there for matches, and he cleared that, I think maybe with 2 misses total. With 5.56, and he was just shooting straight up 77 grain. Good bullets, 77 grain, OTMs or something like that. But he managed to clear it just fine because he had familiarity and experience shooting at those distances with those kind of environmentals at that location. So not diminishing like the fact that he's a very good shooter. But again, having that experience and familiarity with the environment is crucial. So
yeah, range is like, I mean, when you shoot ranges, you kind of get to, if you do it enough, you get to get a lay of the land as far as like what winds typically do.
absolutely.
You can know that, but like you said, you still gotta shoot. Now, I don't want to sound dismissive of like 223, because obviously there's good shooters that really make it work, but the difference, if those people were shooting like a 6.5 Grendel or 6.5 Creedmoor or 308 or something like that,
Yeah.
it does make the, they're probably going to do it a little bit quicker if they know that gun, because it's really
and with the shooting as well. I was very pleased with the balance that it demanded between I mentioned we had some when Mike gets back we'll go in more detail about the shooting course, but going a little bit ahead here, where you had the longer range stuff, at least longer range for 90% of people, right? 99% of people. But then at the same time, just prior to that long range, you had some pretty demanding short range stuff where you're shooting a rifle straight up with one hand. So there was a demanding balance that shooters had to do if they were going to approach this from like, I want to clear and destroy this course. And we had folks that ran it. I think we had 5 folks total that ran it completely clean without penalty, but definitely other folks that ran the shooting clean, but the chug and obstacles maybe not the case. But really demanding shooting, and from what I understand, for a Cola, this was for a Cola Warrior event. This was, I think, favoring heavily for the kind of the distance and more higher level of accuracy being demanded from those shooters.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I'm not surprised Mike did well. For those who haven't shot with Mike, he's a very technically clean shooter. Like, he's not your USPSA grandmaster gonna, shoot the A's and close C's and like, half a second splits or 0.2 splits, but he still shoots pretty quick, but he doesn't miss a lot. So that definitely favors his kind of shooting skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, maybe that's the other criticism I hear a lot with Cola Warrior people, is that they're not quite as good as shooters, as the shooting's maybe not as demanding sometimes, but it sounds like that's not always the case, at least not knowing other events.
Yeah, I can't speak for other events. I haven't been to them. I haven't looked at them, to be honest.
The ones that I know from Cola Warrior are all, I mean, I don't know everyone that shoots it, but the guys that I know that shoot Cola Warrior are really good shooters.
Yeah,
pretty much all of them outshoot me, so I'm not going to throw any shade that way. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for how difficult like other courses of fire were for other Cola Warrior events. I'm only stating what other folks have told me that have done those different Cola Warrior events, and and the scope of at least distance for both rifle and pistol. This was certainly one that was on the outlier.
Yeah, that sounds challenging. All right, Mike, did you have some distances for the rifle or
pistol?
I'm not sure where I dropped.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, you apologize. You're trying to get some data, like a Excel spreadsheet, and then that's all we heard.
Now, so where you were at, you described the start position for the folks in the Suburban, and you described that in the back window is where you saw the plate rack, and you dropped off basically just short of telling us the distance to that plate rack, which I think was like 20, 25-ish, you think?
Yeah, roughly. So apparently when I open the Excel spreadsheet program, it ends the Skype software. And so I did a nice detailed breakdown of all the targets and distances. And now I wonder if the Cola gods just don't want that information out there. But yeah, the pistol targets were anywhere between like 25 to 70 yards, with some very small targetry out there, like a Minmo target at 35 yards, with approximately 2 5-inch targets, maybe 6-inch, that you had to hit, and they would reset each other. That was some very difficult pistol work from inside. They had high value target that you had to engage from the inside that I believe was at around 20, 25 yards. even though you only needed around 14 pistol hits, guys were running dry on pistol. And as I said, I only finished with like 15 rounds of pistol, even though I took like 54. So that was definitely pretty difficult. I don't know how much of the stuff Nick covered while I was gone. I don't want to drag this on too far. I think I'm going to have to jump off here shortly.
Okay, yeah, we just we were talking about the switchy wins and that everyone we know from Cola Warrior can pretty much beat me in a match, so not that that's a high challenge, but
Yeah.
I think
But anyway, with so you shoot pistol inside a vehicle. You shoot, like Mike mentioned, out to about 70-ish yards and maybe 25-ish yards for a plate rack. Get out of the vehicle and you shoot another array of targets with pistol. And at that one, I think that's where you had the 75-yard hits going out. You would, drop your pistol at the station and then move to perhaps the midpoint of the hill and conduct the short range rifle. So the short range rifle had a barricade, of which shooters had to go ahead, I think, make 3 hits on 3 different targets on the right side, and then do the same hits on the left side using your weak side shoulder. After you complete that, and these targets were maybe 110 yards, something like that, for reducive sick, or maybe I think they were reducive sick targets. Mike. Okay. So yeah, the reduced
Yeah,
size.
sorry, I'm getting called to supper, so I'm trying to.
Oh, no worries.
So other people aren't joining the chat that Ryan wasn't planning
on. So you do strong side, weak side, and then from there, you would have to hit a couple other targets at maybe 75, maybe 90 yards, holding a steel plate. So that steel plate was maybe, I don't know, 40 pounds or so. Well, you had to shoot it with a with rifle unsupported for 2 hits. I know a lot of folks failed that. And so that's your midpoint on the hill. After you complete that array, you would go ahead, sprint up to the top of the hill where you would complete the long range rifle. And you complete that long range rifle again with targets ranging between 350 and 700. Once you complete that, that's when the infamous chug begins. And that would just take place just a couple yards behind it at the top of the hill. You get a beautiful view of the targets. You get a beautiful view of the campsite and overall area. And you had the splash zone established just at the base of the top of this hill here. So that was fantastic.
It's nice to have a nice background when you're getting videos of people throwing up. So I was able to see a couple of those. That was I did appreciate the view. So how exactly, I forget how much soda did you have to drink? Soda, pop, whatever
So
your
soda,
locale.
Cola, pop, whatever, tomato, you call it.
Coke.
The meta move, the gamer move is to drink a 2-liter bottle of soda with a 5-ounce chaser, and then you can have, I think, 3 24 ounces or a 6-pack of 12 ounces. So between Mike and I, we ran a 6-pack because if you don't keep your fluid down during that run, you're gonna lose what you're drinking and then incur a penalty appropriate for that. So earning a penalty on a 2-liter is much more damaging than, say, messing up on a single can in a 6-pack. It's a 30-minute penalty versus, say, a 5-minute penalty. So generally,
Gotcha.
the conservative route is to roll with 6-pack, roll through there, and I think that's what Mike and I did. Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that? I know life's getting busy.
So I tried the pro gamer move and attempted a 2-liter in practice a couple days before, and figured out that there is some legit technique that goes into doing the 2-liter, and I don't have that skill yet. Owner, I'm going to try to learn it. My wife's probably going to think I'm crazy, and she already knows I'm crazy. But yes, I want to try to actually get where I can execute a 2 liter chug. But yes, if you're starting out, 12 ounce is definitely the safe way to go. And I'm not a big pop drinker, and that was definitely the earliest at like 6:10 a.m. that I have ever chugged pop, much less 72 ounces. That was a special experience looking out at the sunrise over the mountains in front of me as I chugged Mountain Dew. So,
Good
yep.
choice. Good choice. I wonder if you start drinking from the 2 liter, if you just like jab a hole in the top with your knife, kind of like a pseudo shotgun, that may help you kind of chug a little bit faster. I say
So,
we practice on the range.
so too much, too quick will actually make you want to throw up. That was what I experienced in my yard. And there's definitely a flow rate that is probably optimized where you probably want to hit it really hard in the beginning and then just kind of let that last bit slip in without over pressurizing. But clearly, I need to talk to some of those guys that can actually do the 2 liter chug because I'm just theorizing at this moment.
Well, yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to get some intel before I go out there and do it. So I got the best idea. All right, so let's wrap this up. Any takeaways? Any last comments? Mike, you want to start there?
My takeaway is get to a Cola Warrior. Find a vet that's willing to sponsor you. I know that they do signups on ARFCOM, and there's probably one within driving distance of you. It was a good time, and it definitely sorts out the people who take themselves too serious. And it was an absolute blast. I cannot wait to go back. So get out there, chug some soda, eat some peeps, and have a great time.
Nick?
I say key takeaway from here is, you know, the community is great. The community wants to see you be better, and I think the community can do a lot good with a lot of other good folks joining into it and having fun. So I think it's something that a lot of folks should do. And again, like signups and stuff like that are on ARFCOM. But if you're running a competition, ring, you'll probably run into a Cola person, and they'll generally set you up pretty well to get ready for an event. So with that, I'm lucky to have a event kind of close to me. I'm like midway between, say, Keystone up to the north, and then the other one called East in the south to me. So my intention is to be going down there and experiencing more of this. And despite the reputation I think Cola has with some folks, I think they can stand good benefit by experiencing it, because the folks I know that may say stuff like that, I think they're definitely in it for the community, and I think the community for Cola Warrior is very strong, and it's a good time, and I don't think anyone came to Cola Warrior to say no, and that's kind of where I stand with it. I kind of talking in circles
Awesome.
about it, but I'm very
Yeah, I'm
very
gonna try to make it out to that one, that the East one, whenever I figure out a date on that, and I've kind of warned my wife to that's probably what I'm gonna do. All right, one last question, and this is to Nick and then Mike. Cola Warrior, Colt or not?
That's a great question. I think the jury's still out on it. If it's a cult or not, that remains to be seen. But I remain true to the peep at this point, and hope to see you make the same conclusion.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience, interesting environment. If it's a cult, I guess I'm now a member. But at the same time, I don't know. But it's a blast. Get to one, find someone that wants to carpool, so you have a buddy to talk about upchucking with for hours.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and have a good
absolutely.
time.
thanks to the sponsors. I'm sure there's other ones. I think I saw Bluegrass Steel. I know they sponsor a lot. I saw their name on it. A lot of others.
Okay, I've got a list of sponsors here. I'd
Oh.
love to go through them. Just
Please,
name
yeah.
them out and single them out, because the support for Cola Warrior is resilient. Like, a lot of these folks have been longtime supporters from the start, or for a decade plus. So I definitely want to give them a shout out, of course. So
Absolutely.
of course, Cola Warrior, the very generous donations of time, staff, and everything provided by Geisley, by 03 Screw Lariat, 417 Tap House, Abe and Mo, American Defense Manufacturing, AIM Surplus, ALG Defense, Arisaka, Arson Machine, Axel, Baja Gringo, Bluegrass Targets, which us in Running Gun community are very familiar with, along with American ADM, Craddock Precision, Criterion Barrels, Dan Yankee Kydex, STAC, as many of us in the Running Gun community are familiar with, Jolly Green One, Macron Armory, MOA Targets. I think some of us are familiar with them. Night Solutions LLC, Night Vision Inc., Parsons Precision, Sealright Inc., Taters Welding, and 0 Day Consulting. Those are the sponsors for this event. And again, wonderful crew of sponsors that make an event like this possible. And I really, can't give them more gratitude for doing this. Anyway, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, and let me add to that, with sponsors, you guys, besides putting cool things on the prize table and donating steel and targets and their time and different stuff like that, keep in mind, any of these companies that are sponsoring like a lot of competition shooting matches, I buy their stuff because it's generally better, because they've got sponsored shooters out, they've got people out there running their stuff, and they understand what people who actually run their gear need. Because there's a lot of companies that make not that great stuff, because as we all know, most 90% of the shooting public buys stuff, it sits in their safe, and they put 100 rounds a year. But for the people who are actually out shooting, these companies know what we want, and that's what they're making. I mean, I buy those people steel. I run Geisley triggers and everything I can afford to run a Geisley trigger in. There's other companies in there that I know and buy their stuff and use it because it's just plain better gear. So anything else anyone wants to say before we hang it up here? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for talking about Cola Warrior. Guys, get out to a match if you got one near you. Go to a run and gun match, a 3-gun, USPSA. Just get out and get